Welcome to DT Madness, Chronicles from the Third Life, episode 105, September 8th, 2024. So glad you could make it. Well, yeah, this has been a week. Not sure how the old voice sounds here, coming from the studio nook. Been pretty sick this past week, physically and otherwise. Physically, I don't know, some type of corona type virus. I'm not really a COVID tester these days, so didn't have a fever. I mean, mine usually runs 97, and I guess I was 98.1. I had the kind of clammy, chilly some, but nothing to keep me from being at work and doing tennis practice and calling football games and having town council meetings. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of room to do the resting either this week, but c'est la vie. Um, I got feeling a little bit better, I thought, on Friday, and then Friday night going to the football game. It was another wave, which is kind of what it was, a wavy, a wavy virus. And but I made it through the game, and we beat Shelby, and that was great because it's always good to beat our crosstown rivals. And then yeah, slept a whole bunch this weekend. I probably could still be asleep here at 7:49 in the AM, but I thought it better to start getting back on track. Um, so yeah. Anyway, um, but man, what do you even say, man? What do you even say? It's been a sick, emotional and mental and spiritual week as well. Um, 2 weeks in, a couple weeks in, and there's a new school shooting to deal with. And this one's a little bit different for me because two of my dear friends, their daughter Bella goes to Appalachia. Um, they live in Winder and have for over a decade now. And these are people. One of them, I graduated with, or at least he graduated the year after me. Um, and we've spent time, like, man, me and Joel and Lou, we've spent time together over the last few decades, typically at Widespread Panic concerts and over the weekends where there are Widespread Panic concerts. And now they're they're broken. Their daughter, people, when I mention that, people ask, is Bella, is she okay? And no, no, she's not physically hurt, which I know is what people mean, and I should be more forgiving to that question. But no, those kids are broken, man. Those parents are broken. And all I could do really was just text them and tell them I love them. And Lou's been posting on Instagram as part of her attempt at therapy through this, and just I wrote this to him after After we played our football game Friday night, again, it was our county rivalry. It was a huge event. You know, our kids are going crazy. My daughter's down there. It's white out, so they've all got their shirts on, white shirts, and like powder in their hair, and doing their chants and celebrating after we win, and then and all that, you know. And I'm the guy that does the public address. I'm the PA guy, which is fun. I love it doing that for football games, even though I was struggling with being wiped out from being sick. And but I wrote this to him as I called the game on the PA Friday night. I kept thinking of the Wildcats. That's what the Appalachia Wildcats. I kept the sadness close to me. Your kids should be cheering and acting crazy. Your band should be marching and your colors flying. I kept the sadness close to me all week and today. In the hallways, in the classroom, I thought twice, three times about locked doors and action plans and contingencies. I tried to teach the legislative branch carefully, lest I indoctrinate kids into thinking and feeling. I bought a t-shirt. I wish it would be here sooner, but when it comes, I'll wear the Navy with pride and heartache. We are Appalachia. All I could think to say all week was, I love you. I wish I could turn the world right side up for you. I've thought many times about driving down and hugging you and driving back, and some weekend soon I think I'll do just that. Until then and always, my love is yours. Chi Strong, I've seen as notes and hashtags on some of these kids. And then I don't want to get ahead, but these are things that I think about now. At school, I love the natural daylight. I have huge windows in my classroom. I have huge windows in my classroom, but I'll keep my blinds closed. My door is always locked. I know that lesson already. And I struggle with whether or not I have a little flap to put over my window slit in my classroom door. But when I close the doors in the theater, in the little theater where I have my massive AP government class, then I can't see out, which is good. But when someone knocks, I don't want to let them in. And this is where we are. And maybe it's just me, but I suspect that this is in the minds, somewhere in the minds of teachers, students. And maybe we've gotten so good at just compartmentalizing that and pressing that way down, but I compartmentalized and pressed stuff way down for most of my life. That isn't healthy. This isn't the way to do it, to just pretend. I looked at Maslow's hierarchy this week as I teach AP psychology, and it popped up on some Instagram feed. And the 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 bottom layer is basic needs, which in some cases we struggle to meet with our students. But the very next layer, considered basic needs as well, is security and safety. How am I supposed to continue to convince myself and these kids that education is their way out? That education is the golden ticket. If I can't keep my blinds open, if we jump at least just a little bit when someone knocks on the classroom door, surely this isn't a fact of life, as JD Vance mentioned this week. I don't hate him all the way for saying that, because it is currently currently this is a fact of life and has been increasingly so in the past several years. But I hope we don't stay there, you know? Maybe we secure the buildings. Maybe the targets are soft targets, as Vance says, and maybe we need to beef up our technology. But this Georgia school had it. They had the badges that you push. Their doors lock automatically. I don't know why the classroom door beside the one wasn't open. All these questions aren't answered yet. But how does a 14-year-old have an assault rifle? How is it okay for this man to buy one? Can't we further the conversation to why anyone needs that? But if so, then stringent background checks, red flag laws, whatever, whatever. There will always be new questions that will arise. No doubt some states have strict laws and some states don't, and some loophole will be found, God forbid, the next time. But shouldn't we pour our energy in to these types of things? I got a message this week from an old ball coach of mine who apparently follows the things that I write on Facebook. And it was cool. I was posting up about some really good grants that we were awarded in town, and he sent me a direct message. I don't what is it called on Facebook? I don't know. And he told me that I should, if I wasn't in fact considering or gearing up, if I wasn't gearing up for a run for Congress, then I'm screwing up. He said. He said, "You think you don't have time? You're right. You don't have time. So do it seriously, Mike." I joke, I'm really not joking, that my feelings are way too fragile for a run for any type of higher elected office. My feelings get hurt too easy. I like people to like me too much, which is why I can do a podcast. And those of you who are in favor of all the people having assault rifles, you can be mad, but you're not going to be able to tell me directly. Of course, who knew that I would be, 10 years into public service when I joked around on Twitter, about running for soil and water conservation a decade ago. And now here I am contemplating running for mayor again. So I just can't imagine putting a D or an R beside my name. I just can't imagine. I'm not a party guy. I'm not. And in order to make it even to the state house level, I mean, in this district, I'd have to be an R with any type of chance to win. But either party that I chose, I would have to toe the line. When I was a youth pastor, I got outvoted church to one. And so that's kind of my view on towing the line. Plus, I've said way too much here on the podcast. They could make it into quick memes. But who knows, September 8th, 2024, maybe this is the launch. Maybe this is my campaign speech, because I do make speeches. At town council this past Tuesday, it came up that our town logo, whatever, some type of regional marketing, something or another that one of our people went to learn about branding and learn about tourism and such as that. And we had a thing from our tourism director, and they talked about all the things around Boiling Springs, and then the other person said that our brand, our logo came in last, which I really don't care about that for a second. I was for the current logo because it is unassuming, because it isn't like a mega church logo, be, because we are about respectful growth and we don't really want a whole huge influx of tourism. But what was also going on there was a push to rename one of our main roads after a former football coach here from the 90s, somebody that's been involved in Gardner Webb. His name is Woody Fish. And regardless of that, like, this alumni group came out to support Woody Fish and his wife Pam, who is very sick at the end of her sickness. Um, and very similar alumni groups had donated this bench to honor my dad and his 4 decades of service. And I had talked with um, Dr. Litton at the high school, who doesn't get quite the same respect and treatment. He coached football back a long time ago at Gardner Webb and has been a huge figure in this community for education. And, you know, Bill Ellis, one of our council members. I mentioned all of these things, out loud in the speech, and what I'm saying is that, okay, if we want to make this logo representative of who we are, if we want to let people know who we are, it isn't about what's around Boiling Springs, what is in Boiling Springs, who we are. And this has been my pitch over the past couple of months, and will be if I run again. We are an education community. Our elementary schools are top notch. The high school that all these people feed into is the best in the county. And we have great partnerships with the community college that isn't in Boiling Springs but is connected to Boiling Springs, job training and skills development. But we have a 4-year university. That's what we have. 1/5 of our land is Gardner Webb. And so if we're going to rebrand, which I hope we don't spend how many ever thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to do that. But if we are, and we're not going to be serious about being a college town, then both sides of the street are fooling each other. Now, to be fair, I said all that stuff about my dad and about Woody Fish and Dr. Litton, Bill Ellis, because the current administration struggles, maybe willingly, to honor the people who have built Gardner Webb, to honor the people that have been involved there for decades and decades and decades, and that have created this sense of small town community. But I also recognize that it is a small liberal arts college in a time where college doesn't have that luster that it used to. Kids just aren't enrolling as much. And so I know that they have financial difficulties. So I do want to highlight the amazing new facilities that they have. And the community, the town should reach across the street as well. That's the thing. That's who I am. Not an R or a D. We need to reach across and figure out where we can make common ground. When did that become? So yeah, we'll see. Um, we'll see how that goes. I gave a bunch of speeches to the kids this week at school, and one of them was about context, because in AP seminar they were all um, they're working on photo essays and photo argument essays, and we're beginning to jump into developing research questions. I don't know where they ended up. This person probably was just distracted and looking at their internets, and they were on some video, I guess a new ad from the Trump campaign about how Kamala Harris doesn't like to say Merry Christmas. And they were just playing that clip over and over, and I came and asked them what it was, and they explained to me that Kamala Harris doesn't like Merry Christmas. And I was like, yeah, but when was she giving the speech? And at first I thought it was after Newtown, because what she's saying is, how dare we say Merry Christmas until. And the context is that she didn't think we should say Merry Christmas until they got DACA fixed. because what was bound to happen if they didn't is a whole bunch of kids were going to be stripped away from their parents right before the Christmas season. Uh, People who had immigrated here illegally but had brought their kids, the DACA or the Dreamers Act says that those kids will not be separated. Those kids will not be sent back because they came here of no fault of their own. Now, 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 and I told him this, regardless of what you think about that, maybe you are hardcore on immigration and you believe that we're a nation of laws and we've got to have laws. And if we fudge the laws, then nobody will respect any. That line of reasoning is fine with me. I may not agree with you, but that's a good line of reasoning. But you got to understand the context. Don't just take a 10-second clip and then think that you know think that you know everything about somebody. It's the same thing with Ezra 10 and the same thing with Jeremiah 29. Read the book. There's a clip going on from Friday night's game. One of my students in that class actually returned a punt, and it was an amazing run. It was. The highlight reel is phenomenal. He's juking and jab stepping, and he runs over an opponent, and then makes his way to the end zone, and then flips into the end zone, and the highlight reel goes slow mo as he does the flip, and it's awesome. It's cool, and you can watch that, and that goes out on the internet, and it is out on the internet. And so some of my friends who weren't at the game were like, "Ooh, man, that'll be the one we're talking about for a while." And I was like, no, because there were three penalties on that play. There were three holding or block in the back penalties, and then the flip to the end zone got an unsportsmanlike conduct. So it was not a touchdown. In fact, we had to retreat 90 yards back to our 10-yard line. Context. The second speech I gave was to my AP government kids. There's 44 of them, if I haven't mentioned. And we were headed for our first test, and a lot of them are coming from an AP US history class um, right before that, and they're really struggling. Like they're making 40s, and there's a sub in there. The regular teacher is still out on maternity leave, but the sub is trying to keep up, and it's a I don't want to say it's a disaster, but it is a train. It's a train wreck, which I guess is a disaster. Um, and so they're feeling the pressure because they're sophomores. So I gave him the big speech about, I know that you feel this pressure. And maybe you feel it from inside because you've always been excellent and you've set this bar for yourself to be excellent so that if you fail just a little bit, then maybe you feel like your worth is going down. Or maybe it comes from your parents. And I told him that as parents, Sarah and I, we try not to put that type of grade pressure on our kids, but I know that we say things like that sometimes. I know that we get a little anxious when their grades drop because we understand how the system works. And that was the third thing. We've built this system. We've built this system where everybody gets A's. And so one not A really does drop them dozens of places in class rank. And class rank plays into things like scholarships and college admissions. And if you don't get this, then you don't, and I told him, I was like, it's not as real as it feels. And that's easy for me to say because I've been through it. And I told him about my experience at Davidson. I told him less than a month in that, I had a pretty decent GPA my first semester, but I had a 0.0 at Davidson my second semester. I flunked out. Took me a couple dozen years to say those words. But if I would not have failed and if I would not have ended up flat on my face, I wouldn't be here getting to teach you, I told him. I wouldn't be here as mayor or married, with the amazing kids and, living the dream. So failure is not the end. this pressure isn't as real. One of the kids actually came up on the stage and gave me a hug. A huge offensive slash defensive lineman got up on the stage in the little theater and gave me a hug. That was awesome. Speech number three was, I was mad about this. And maybe you can feel some of this anger. I think I'm still coming off the sickness, both physically and mentally this week. But we had a training, and our purpose this time is we're number one school in the county test scores. We not even close. And our overall school report card grade has gone from probably close to a D in the past 5 years to now on the borderline of being rated an A. What does that mean? Whatever. You can look it up. Their metrics, standardized tests, and then the ones that are involved that we aren't quite up to speed is the ACT and the work keys. So anyway, I'm not even going to bore you with what all that kind of stuff is, but they're two different tests, and we're trying to focus on those and raise awareness because we want to get our statistics up. And I don't mean to say that like I know our administrators and I know that they care about the students individually. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the system. And so I left out of there and I've got Appalachia on my mind and I've got these test scores on my mind, and I walked into the student council meeting and interrupted them. And I was like, you guys are not statistics. You're not statistics. You're humans, you're individual people, and we're don't allow us to make you into a test score. Don't allow us to make you as a part of our overall test scores. And don't allow us to just say that statistically there aren't that many, shootings. Don't let us turn you into a statistic. Make us treat you as people. Speech to the kids part 4 was back to the AP psychology. I'm sorry, back to the AP seminar class. Struggling with pulling depth from those kids, and so I had them read "Mad Farmer Liberation Front," Wendell Berry, which is my favorite poem, which is why my tattoo is on my left arm. And I talked to them about it, and I had them look up how long and ask them if it was worth planting the sequoias, even if you never got a chance to see them grow. You definitely weren't going to see them to maturity. Is it still worth doing these things? Is it still worth doing these things when you don't get any credit for it, when you don't get any recognition for it? I talked about the bucket of life to them. I talked about making ripples and how maybe a lifetime from now you'll get to know how your ripples impacted other people. And sometimes you get to, and that's an amazing feeling. But what if you don't? Do you still consider what happens when you drop your pebble into the bucket of life? And I told them about the sequoia cone and how sometimes it takes dozens of years, and that the way that the seeds are released is either by being trampled on by a large animal or by fire. So yeah, challenging them to think. I know that maybe the authorities at the state level don't want that, but I can't help it. So I've got a lot of lamentations, I've got a lot of things that I've lamented this week that we will soon begin to talk about the Prince of Peace and this group of people who gets angry and makes these clips of Kamala Harris saying that she doesn't say Merry Christmas. They're going to begin to talk about the Prince of Peace, but it sure seems like we worship the gods of war and violence. Definitely the gods of greed. And there hardly isn't anything that isn't commodified anymore, including prayer and worship. It's a whole industry. I'll lament that we don't feel the need to listen. That that effort to listen is just too much for us. That we are numbed by our devices. That we build our walls and plant our flags, and anyone outside the camp is considered the other. And increasingly more than just the other, the enemy. I'll admit that all of that gets named the church and somehow turned into anyone against that culture is attacking the church and the foundation of the country. And so let's put out pictures of Jesus with ear bandages and wash our hands of the atrocities because we have to fight to defend. As clearly as I can say it, that's not the gospel. It's definitely not the gospel of Jesus. But there are glimmers. There are. I see it in the faces of these kids. They want more. They know that there has to be more. They know that there's got to be more than this. And they just need the sparks and the encouragement, and they don't need much. And I tell them, and it's not just to build them up, but I tell them over and over that the adults have kind of ruined the place, and we really need you now. That you aren't. I got to introduce the student council at our I'm sorry, the student government from Crest at our council meeting Tuesday night, and I didn't introduce them as the leaders of the future. They're leaders now. They are impacting the school and the community now, and we need them to. Some for the kids, man. I'll keep doing the things. I'll keep doing the things. We did. We got a $483,000 Safe Streets for All grant, and that was fun. That was amazing, and I was able to talk with Senator Ted Budd's office, and I talked with Congressman McHenry's office, and talked to an old friend of my guy Andy Polk, and we laughed, and now we're gonna meet and I emailed Secretary Buttigieg and told him that I'm a young mayor, a little bit older than he is. Um, I'm interested to see if I get a reply back from him, but that's where we got the Safe Streets for All grant was from the Department of Transportation. Tuesday night, I'm speaking at a rural studies class at Gardner Webb, both because I love to answer questions. So anytime listeners that you have questions, you feel free to send them to me because that's one of my most fun games is to answer good questions. And I told Dr. Wright that, and but also I'm answering them both as a 20-year veteran rural school teacher, but also a 10-year veteran local council mayor person. So I'm really excited about that. And it creates a tie, it creates another tie between the town and the university. And I'm going to keep doing that. Football Fridays, man, this past week we were lightning delayed, so we played the second half of our game on Monday night, and then we were back on Friday night against Shelby, and then this Friday we're home again against Charlotte Catholic, and we have our big drawing. And I love it, and I can't wait. Tennis is about to crank up, and Thursday begins our conference season. And then following that, we've got 2 matches a week for the next several weeks. My AP GoPo class is amazing, and those 44 kids and a couple of them, including my own kid, got up on stage and did a rap about James Madison. And one of my friends said it reminded him of Theo and Cockroach from when they did the rap about Julius Caesar. For those of y'all who are old enough to remember the Cosby Show, and um, but yeah, I mean, I've got to actually go over to the school here in just a little bit and spend a couple hours getting ready for that class tomorrow because the bigwigs are coming in, county commissioners and school board members, and perhaps some even state representatives. Because on the one hand, we want to let them know what kind of good things we have going on, and on the other, that you know what, we've got 44 kids and we're meeting in the little theater because you keep cutting our funding. So hopefully they're maybe they're listening to the podcast. We appreciate you so much. And we thank you for considering funding our schools. See, there I am. I can do the campaign speech. I think about things. I still don't take myself too seriously. I still make myself giggle. And like when you there, these quick pass bys. Maybe you have this at your office. But the long hallways at school, and sometimes it's kids. And usually it's more just like a "Hey, Bo, how's it going?" or "Almost time." "Oh, we're getting there." Something like that to the kids, or some little joke. But when you walk by a teacher and it's whatever time of the day, and I think the last one I did was I think I can," and then you get the kind of knowing chuckle. Maybe it's a sympathy chuckle for me trying to be funny, but it's wild, man, in the hallways because I'm increasingly the veteran. And so many of the teachers are not just younger, but considerably younger than I am. But I like to take that leadership role. It's cool. I'm still looking at concerts. I'm waiting for the Avett Brothers to post their New Year's Eve, like where they're going to be. I hope it's Charlotte because that's a lot closer than Raleigh. And yes, I did. I did look up Courtyard Hudson Yards, which is my place where I stay in New York, for Fish when they play at Madison Square Garden. I mean, I'm not going. That was the deal. I'm not going. But I mean, I needed to check and just see if there was availability. That's all. Because maybe they'll play. Maybe they'll play the song. Must be something more to this. Gotta be something more to this. Well, this has been a Church of Six production. Maybe that's the sponsor of my campaign. Paid for by Church of Six. Brought to you by the bucket of life, the rope of relationship, the foundation tower of stone, the wall of belief, the token of hope, and the magic rock times one. One received and one given. Nothing divine is desperate, and in order to be, try to never seem. And may all your circumstances serve to awaken your compassion. And as you go, teach peace. Don't forget to believe, y'all, and be live. Grace and peace, my friends.